Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, good night, or good morning to all of you. And we are so pleased to have so many people in this meeting from all over the world in different time zones. I am Shakira Mohammed from Trinidad and Tobago, a teacher for the past 15 years. And ladies and gentlemen, this is our 204th edition of our ICC Thought Leaders Forum. We wish to sincerely thank all of you who have contributed in whatever way to the success of this ongoing Pan-Indo-Caribbean and Pan-Indian Diaspora Global Project. For 203 unbroken continuous weeks, we have been here every single Sunday. And in the past 3 years and 11 months, we have featured 858 presenters from all parts of the world speaking on 203 topics. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a weekly forum being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center, a legally registered research and publishing company operating since 2010. And in order to continue this weekly program and to make it bigger and better, we are kindly asking for suggestions, as well as volunteers and donations, and you can contact Dr. Kumar Mahabir for details. So I'll introduce you now to our moderator for this evening, who is Shalama Mohammed, the co-director of this ICC Zoom platform, who is a business teacher and researcher from Trinidad and Tobago. She obtained her master's degree in business psychology from Franklin University in the USA. So Shalama, welcome.
Thank you very much, Shakir. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Namaste and a warm welcome to all of you from hot and sunny Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with us. This program is being recorded on Zoom and live streamed on the YouTube channel of the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center. So welcome to all of you on YouTube at this time. To avoid intrusions from trolls, Robin Ramsing, our IT manager, has muted everyone. Speakers, please do not admit anyone, do not unmute anyone, and do not allow anyone to share your screen, please. Thank you so much for cooperating. Ladies and gentlemen, over the next 2 hours, we will be having a panel presentation followed by questions and answers after each contribution. So our panel will be speaking about health and wellness in the Indian diaspora. By promoting knowledge and healthy practices across all age groups and addressing a wide range of health issues from chronic diseases to physical and mental health, we hope to improve community well-being and influence policy and economic outcomes to the benefit of all of us. The public health system in Trinidad and Tobago came under fire recently, actually earlier this month, and is under significant fire now because it is currently facing lawsuits following the death of 11 babies. Our condolences to the bereaved families, as well as to all of those medical practitioners who would have been involved in some way. So we are wondering, what are the alternatives to medical facilities which are touted to be the safest options by government and medical experts? We were going to show you a video which presented how medicines are now being created, but unfortunately of no use to anyone except those who are selling it. Unfortunately, we don't have that footage at this time, so we are going to go straight into chatting with our speakers. And I want to introduce you to Dr. Andrew Danu of Trinidad. He is the president of the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago. He's the director of the Trinidad and Tobago NCD Alliance and serves on the Ministry of Health's Food Advisory Committee. Welcome, Dr. Danu. You can go ahead with your presentation.
Thanks, Shamala, and thanks to the committee for the invitation. Let me just share my screen so I can begin. All right. So, are you seeing well? Everything is good, right? Nice. So today, of course, I'm going to be talking about diabetes because that is my field. It's my field of study through my PhD work, and it's also my field of outreach and research. So I'm going to be focusing today on diabetes and the Indian diaspora because, of course, there are specific findings that have come up over the last few years that have indicated why people of Indian descent and people of South Asian descent are actually at higher risk for developing diabetes. So before I begin, I want to just start with a question. I don't have the poll feature here, else I would have put up a poll, but I just want to tell you a story about these two men, and I want you to, to keep it in mind and keep your answer in mind until the end of the presentation. So I have two brothers here, Steve and Mike, and I just gave them names, and you can see them. And you can see Mike is very skinny, and Steve may be chubby or fat, as we would say. Let's think of these two men as not living today, but let's think of them living about 100,000 years ago or more, when we didn't have agriculture and we didn't have processed foods, and we didn't have the ability to get food very quickly. So we were living in hunter-gatherer societies. You can think of them like cavemen. So let's think of them as cavemen. So they had to essentially find their food to survive. Because they had to find their food to survive, they didn't have any guarantee that they're going to be getting food. So Mike and Steve are brothers. So let's say they go on a hunt and they get whatever, they catch a woolly mammoth and they kill the woolly mammoth and they get food. Both of them eat, and both of them are satisfied, and both of them survive because they get food. But after a few days may pass, they're not guaranteed of getting food. 2 weeks may pass, they're not guaranteed of getting food. Who is the person you think is going to die first? Well, I'm going to leave that answer to the end, and based on the presentation that I have, keep that in mind. Who is going to die first? Is it Mike going to die first? Is it Steve going to die first? If it is, they don't get food for a few weeks. So we'll come back to that. So quickly, just talking about diabetes in the world today, we have about, excuse me, yeah, diabetes in the world today, we have about 537 million people living with diabetes. That's about 1/10 of the world, and greater than 2 out of 5 people, so about half of everybody who has diabetes doesn't know that they have diabetes. So this is the global statistics, but I've been able to pull out some prevalence data for some of the countries with South Asian diasporas, which have statistics. I mean, there are others, but I don't have these statistics. So in the Caribbean, we'll have Suriname 13.2, Guyana 11.2, Trinidad and Tobago 14.8 of our adult population living with diabetes. In India, it's 8.3, so it's much lower. Maldives 6.5. Fiji and Mauritius quite high at 17.7 and 26.5. I suspect in Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana and Suriname, we actually have higher prevalences of diabetes than I've reported, because we don't collect data as consistently and as completely as we should have been. But I know that steps are being taken now. So I think these numbers are much higher. But that's the impact of diabetes in the Indian diaspora. And we all know diabetes affects the whole body. Diabetes affects everything. And we know when people are diagnosed with diabetes, you develop a whole range of issues. And diabetes affects your brain, your eyes, your heart, kidneys, and feet, and any disease that you could think about, you could relate it back to diabetes. Although globally, diabetes is the second leading cause of death, cardiovascular disease and cancers being the first in some countries, either or. But diabetes is related to all of that, and we collectively refer to it as the metabolic syndrome. Now, I'm just setting the stage because I really want to talk about specifically what is happening to the Indian diaspora. And to understand this, we need to understand that there are different types of diabetes. Type 1, type 2, gestational, and there are monogenic forms, which refer to diabetes due to a single gene mutation. Now, the most common form is, of course, type 2 diabetes, and 95% of people with diabetes will have type 2 diabetes. So for the rest of the presentation, and of course, the type of diabetes that I'll be referring to is type 2. And type 2 diabetes is the type of diabetes we would think of as related to lifestyle, related to how you eat and how much you weigh and exercise and so on. And it is related to, again, insulin resistance. So what do we know as causing type 2 diabetes? And when we think of the cause, we classify them into modifiable and non-modifiable risk factors. So, of course, the modifiable are the things that you can change. So your weight, how much you exercise, and how much you eat, those are the things that you can change. Things that you have no control over is, of course, hereditary factors and and old age. So today we're going to focus on the hereditary factors, which of course the family you're born into, or the hereditary line that you're born into. So how does your hereditary factors, or how does your genetics play a role in you developing diabetes? Now, there's some interesting research coming out of India and some of the Indian diasporic countries about the reasons why Indian people are, or rather the South Asian diaspora, are more prone to developing diabetes. And this reason is, well, I refer to it as the starvation adaptation. Now, how did British colonialism actually cause this, or influence diabetes incidences in India? So, of course, we all know India was ruled by Britain, or has been, I'm trying to move around the images, the videos here so I can see the whole screen. Yeah. So we all know Britain would have ruled India for almost 90 years, and ruled officially, of course. Britain had a much longer influence in India. And during that time, there were actually about 25 famines, major famines, that is. And of course, we all know in times of famine, there isn't food. Um, these famines caused about 60 million deaths over the course of those 90 or so years. Now, to compare the 2,000 years before British rule, India would have gone through about 17 famines over the course of 2,000 years. So there were far more famines in just the space of 90 years compared to 2,000 years. And this famine, or these continuous famines, resulted in the Indian body's physiology, or the genes of the Indians, and their descendants, to be starvation adapted. And I'll tell you what starvation adaptation means. Um, these famines, of course, will and can be linked to British policy of increased taxation, decreased spending on India, and increased exportation of Indian commodities for wars and for their own British people. So I have an image here, of course. I'm not sure when the image was taken, but it was around the time of one of these famines in India. Now, when we talk about starvation adaptation, what is this? So because these famines, again, although they would have they would have happened over 100 years ago, they affect how Indian bodies or South Asian bodies store fat and process sugars. And these are due to epigenetic changes. Now, epigenetics are, you could think of it as proteins, or you could think of it as features on top of your DNA that cause changes, and cause changes as to how DNA is expressed. And these changes, of course, are inherited, and they're inherited by future generations. So because famines caused, and again, famines meaning that if it is that there isn't enough food, people need to survive. So Indian bodies have become adapted to survive out of famines. So again, this allows the Indian body, or the South Asian body, to be adapted to starvation, but it puts us at risk, because now in an environment where we have an abundance of food, these characteristics we have evolved to make us very good at living through starvation, is actually working against us and causing non-communicable diseases like diabetes. So what we found is that just surviving one famine doubles your risk, or doubles the risk of the second generation, so of your offspring, to have diabetes, and and your grandchildren doubles the risk of having high blood sugar. So just one famine does that. So the repeated famines over the course of time has caused our bodies, our genetics, to evolve in such a way. So South Asians, again, are more prone to insulin resistance. And insulin resistance, again, is when although the body produces insulin, and insulin is used to allow blood sugar to get into the cells. With an insulin-resistant body, although insulin is produced, the insulin either doesn't work well, or the cells don't respond to the insulin being produced, and blood sugars continuously rise. So this means that, of course, when the body is not insulin resistant, blood sugars are processed properly, or food that you consume are processed properly. With insulin resistance, it means that periodically, over a period of time, your blood sugars are going to tend to rise, and the rising blood sugars are going to lead to diabetes. Because of course it makes it harder for muscle and liver to absorb the blood sugar that comes from your food. And then of course that's stored as fat. And I mean, that would be a good thing if it is that we didn't get food very often, but no, we're living in a society where food is abundant and food is all around, and we no longer have traditional diets, and we have a diet which are very high in fat and high in processed, highly processed, which means that you easily get calories. So the starvation adapted body now is presented with a situation where it's very easy for the body to be efficient. It's like having a car, or having a car that works very, very well. You put in a little bit of fuel in it and it can go very, very far. But if you put in a lot of fuel into the car, then the car doesn't know, well, you're not going to be using all that fuel, so it has to be stored somewhere. So this is where it stores as fat. And then, so eventually, this is the statistic that we have now, that South Asians are 6 times more susceptible to diabetes than Europeans. And this is one of the reasons why. And to just to wrap up, I'm coming back to the slide because again, from all that I've told you, and the reason that we have this is, and the reason we've had this advantage, or this adaptation, was that it was advantageous. And I mean, not just Indians have this adaptation. Every human being in the world has this adaptation. But the reason why I would say this adaptation has been triggered is because of the famines that Indian ancestors had to go through. So going back to this little story about Mike and Steve, they are cavemen, and they don't get food for a while until they hunt, and 2 weeks has passed. And if 3 weeks has passed, the one who could store the fat better is the one who will survive. The one who is skinny and doesn't store fat well is burning off the food very quickly, and that's the person that's going to die. So Mike will die, Steve will survive, and Steve will have a higher chance of having offspring, having children. So if Steve has children, his children would also tend to have those same genes that make him be able to store fat very well. And if that continues generation after generation, this is why, of course, most of the human beings living on Earth today do have the ability to hold on to fat very easily, because, of course, it's advantageous. It has been advantageous to us. Now, however, it's not as advantageous because with the abundance of calories, with the abundance of fast food, here's where you have these issues popping up. You have these issues of diabetes. And what is recommended is, of course, many physicians, of course, recommend ethnicity-centered or culturally centered medical approaches, in that the body of an Indian is not, or South Asian is not really designed to, say, for example, put on a lot of muscle. Because if you put on muscle, burns a lot of calories. So generally you tend to put on more fat than put on muscle because, again, the starvation adaptation factors. So we really need to take this into consideration. I found it very interesting when I started to read about it. And I want to wrap up my presentation there just by, again, presenting those pieces of information, and I'll be open to taking some questions and increasing. Oh, I think I missed this slide, sorry. But what can we do again? If you have diabetes in your family, it's especially if you're South Asian, and you should take extra steps earlier in life, as evidence has shown that, for example, returning to yoga and Ayurveda and traditional diets has shown to reduce diabetes development in South Asians. So again, incorporating diet and weight management and exercise and so on. So I think that's the end of my presentation. I want to thank you again for the opportunity.
Very, very informative, Andrew. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome your questions or your comments. Please raise your electronic hand. You can click on the reactions button at the base of your screen. You'll see your electronic hand there. And if you click on it, I'll be able to call upon you. But while we wait for members of the audience, Andrew, I thought your statistics very interesting. You said in terms of prevalence of diabetes, India is at 8.3%, and they have a population of 1.4 billion people. We, however, in Little Trinidad, with a population of 1.4 million, we have a prevalence rate of 14.8%. What is India doing right?
it may not be what India is doing right. So it may just mean that the data is not coming in. As you rightly said, India is a huge place to be able to get prevalence data. May one be difficult. Also, two, we do understand and appreciate that India is vastly different across the various states, and some research that has actually come out to show why Indians who have had to go through indentureship, for example, or Indians who have had to go through colonial rule have these adaptations. They've actually compared. I'm trying to remember the name of the Indian sect or tribes, but there were isolated Indians part of India who weren't exposed to colonialism, who weren't exposed to indentureship, and they didn't have some of these, or they don't have, or their descendants don't have some of the characteristics some other Indian descendants would have. But I would say again, the statistic, there are many reasons why the statistic may be varied. Also, many parts of India may not also, we know many parts of India don't have the foods that we would have as we would class as fast food. Many parts of India are very, living in poverty. So their bodies, again, the Indian body has adapted to that, and that's what they're living under. So that's maybe the reason why, one of the reasons why we don't have such high statistics of diabetes in India itself, but we do have it in the diasporas.
All right, great. Thank you very much for that response. Dr. Mahabir has a question for you.
Yes, Andrew, Dr. Andrew, thank you very much. There's a lot of noise going on behind me. I'm in a wedding in Guyana, so a lot of activities. So it seems as Indians are prone to diabetes because you have the genetics and you have the diet and you have the alcohol and so on. Do you care to make comments on these contributors?
Yeah, definitely. The diet and the alcohol and so on, right? Well, definitely, it isn't something that our ancestors used to be consuming in gluttony as we do today. Meaning that having, say, for example, okay, so let's think of having traditional foods in Trinidad, which you may think of as, roti and rice and these types of foods. We're told not to consume those foods as much now. But we often say that our ancestors have had that all the time. But on the contrary, they've had it, but they've also been either working on the fields or doing manual labor throughout the day, walking around the place, not in a car, not sitting behind a desk. So their bodies again have adapted to be able to use those types of foods or be able to consume those types of foods, but also burn it off. No, we don't have that need to be able to expend those calories or that need to be able to perform that amount of physical activity. So because we can't perform the physical activity to burn it off, even if we do consume those diets that our grandparents used to consume, it's really dangerous for us. So here's what we need to change even that. So that's, I hope that answered the question that you had.
Thank you. Let's take a question from Mr. Dwarka.
Yes, first I want to thank Dr. Danu for the very valuable information he presented. But I also want to add a little bit of hope. I am 77 and I am not diabetic or hypertensive, although both my parents were diabetics and both of them died from stroke because of hypertension. Most of my siblings are diabetic and they're overweight and all of that. And I think this is something, well, of course, it is a lifestyle condition. And if you are educated and you are mindful of what you are eating and drinking, you can manage that condition where you could avoid it. My wife used to be on metformin, and 3 months now she's not on it. And I'm not advertising, but our daughter sent a watch that tells you how much footstep you make for the day. It's one of these smart watches. And she does like about 18,000 footsteps for the day because she's involved in a business. And so she's able to manage. She don't take sugar in her tea and so on. but we both have a very healthy diet, mostly vegetables. I'm vegetarian, so we have peas and beans and protein in that form, and I'm saying this to say that this is something that, with conscious effort, you can reverse it. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that comment. And I mean, there isn't much to say after what you said, because you are right in that making those changes earlier on in life as well doesn't mean that it's inevitable to develop diabetes, but it just means that you're at higher risk and you need to make those changes. And I congratulate both you and your wife for doing that.
Terrific. Let's take the last question from Satyadat. Satyadat, can you unmute?
Yes, still on mute.
Yeah, thank you. This is very exciting presentation. I'm like Indo-Fijian, and we are all over the world, everywhere. And this diabetes is most prevalent, cause of death in our diaspora. And it is like proven fact that the type of food that we now consume, as it's been revealed by the presenter, having all those junk food and all that stuff nowadays, new type of food and everything. And the food that we traditionally were used to, our ancestors and all that, was not a problematic one. But now looking at our own homes and the lifestyle that we have, like we eat a lot of spices, and we eat a lot of oil and a lot of fats, and our lifestyle is very different from what it used to be for our ancestors. We are, all those in diaspora out there, we are just like workaholic. We are concentrated on, making money, having good jobs, and we don't look after our health. So this is another contributing factor to this killing disease that is in our diaspora. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Andrew, closing comment.
Yeah, well, thanks for that comment. And again, I echo those sentiments, because again, in all of the countries which have predominantly or largely Indian diasporas, we see very similar features, especially those which are now being influenced by westernized diets and westernized fast food availability. We're seeing it over the last 20 to 30 years. So you're seeing it, the influence of it more and more. So again, return to traditional foods, but again, healthier foods. But again, we just can't say we return to traditional foods, because, as I was saying, our ancestors also had traditional levels of activity, physical activity. We don't need to walk to work anymore. We don't need to perform physical labor. Right now we're having a meeting and people are all around the world. We could have never done this 20 years ago, or 30 years ago. So now the conveniences of modern society is working against us. I always like to say our environment has evolved faster than our bodies could keep up. So this is where we need to consciously make these changes. So thanks again for that contribution. And thanks again to the committee for allowing me to present.
We so appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Andrew. And I would like you to please check the chat. There are some questions there from Kasraj, specific to Mike and Steve. Probably you can give them a response there. Thank you very much. So let's hope we have some responses about Ayurveda, how Ayurveda can possibly help with diabetes as well. And this brings us straight into our second speaker. She is Linda Govindas of Guadeloupe. She has a master's degree in Ayurvedic medicine from Manipal University in India and Middlesex University in London. She's also the president of the Group for Complementary and Integrative Traditional Medicines. Welcome, Linda. Hi, Linda. Are you able to unmute?
Can we make her co-host?
Hi,
Right.
can you see me as well, or you just hear me?
I'm hearing you, not seeing you.
Okay, 1 second. I'll try to.
Mhm. Okay, we have 15 minutes for this presentation. So Linda should be with us or rather, she should start her presentation any minute now.
So here I am. So I'm going to share
Good, thank you.
my screen. So first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me. So I'm Linda from Guadeloupe, in the French West Indies, and I am an Ayurvedic practitioner. And today I thought I would share with you the Ayurvedic heritage that we have here in the French West Indies, and that maybe in Trinidad and Tobago and in other part of the diaspora, then you can find some similarities. So I have a problem with my screen. 1 second. Oh. This is my first time sharing my PowerPoint. That's it. So here we can go. So first of all, I would like to share with you what is Ayurveda. I'm not sure if you know what is Ayurveda, but I thought that I'll introduce what it is first. Ayurveda is one of the oldest medicine of the planet, actually, right now. It has more than 5,000 years old of knowledge, and it has been originated and mainly practiced in India. After the independence of India, Ayurveda started to spread all around the world, and even in the West. And then we started to hear it also in our French West Indies islands. And people thought that it was a new medicine, but it was actually very old. And when we started to look at what we were doing here in Guadeloupe and also in Martinique, we realized that we had already some of the practice of Ayurveda in our culture here. The aim of Ayurveda is to help people all around the world, not just the Indian diaspora, to be in a state of health. Health in the body, the physical body, the mental, and as well the emotional body. All this in order to help us to reach our spiritual path. And in order to do that, Ayurveda has 5 therapeutic axes. The first one is food. It's a habit around food and what we are eating. But you will see that before talking about what kind of food to eat, Ayurveda put the aim on how to eat in order to digest properly. Because according to Ayurveda, if we are not able to digest what we eat, even though it's the best medicine on earth, it won't do us well. It might actually harm us. So one of the first thing to learn to do is to eat in order to be able to digest what we are eating. Then we have the second axis, which is anything related to health and our habits around daily habits, how to live in harmony with nature, the circles, the natural cycles of the seasons, the sun around the earth. So how to adapt what we do in harmony with nature. We have another axe, which is the herbal medicine. So we have all sorts of therapeutical preparation in Ayurveda. Some of the branches of Ayurveda actually uses also minerals, but the more popular, let's say, preparations are made with herbs. And then we have the body works, what I call all the physical care. So most of the people, when they hear about Ayurveda, they hear about the massage. And the massage is part of this branch that I call body work. Then we also have the part which is dedicated to spirituality. So anything that will help us to reconnect with our own self, our own body, what's going on within us, and what is linking us to nature, to God, to the divine. So I think I told you about the 5 axes. And what most people don't know is that in Ayurveda, we have specialties. So Ayurveda is not just about massages and well-being. It's actually a real medicine. And you have 8 specialties in this medicine. So you have general medicine, chirurgical medicine, you have anything related to the eyes, the ears, the nose, and the mouth. Then you have another branch, which is anything dedicated to child birth and child health. Then you have gynecology. You also have anything related to reproductive system and how we can fertilize our body in order to procreate. We have also anything related to toxicology. And I think I'm missing the last one, which is about rejuvenation. So how to keep young and healthy and to push back the old age and live for 100 years according to Ayurveda. So this is what we can say to introduce Ayurveda. So when we talk about the heritage of Ayurveda in the French West Indies, I started to put the focus in my country, which is Guadeloupe. And in Guadeloupe, the first Indians, they arrived around 1854 and 1855 after slavery. And it was about 40,000 people arriving in Guadeloupe. And then nowadays, the Indian population of Guadeloupe is only 9% of the population, which is around 396,000 people. So you can see on the graph, it's the green color. We are not that many right now in Guadeloupe. It's not like in Guyana or in Trinidad and Tobago. But the heritage that we have of the health system is very present, very strong. So first of all, we have the heritage, the spiritual heritage with the religion and the philosophy, artistic heritage with the dance, the music, even the textile. We use a lot of madras in Guadeloupe for the traditional dress. And then we have the culinary heritage. The main dish in Guadeloupe is colombo, which is a curry. And then we have also the medicinal heritage where we're going to focus today. And we also have many important people who have Indian origins in our country. So when I talk about the Ayurvedic heritage in Guadeloupe, people think so often that I decided to study Ayurveda because of my Indian origins. It's indirectly the reason why. The first thing that happened is that Ayurveda touched my heart, the way it approaches health by its simplicity and efficiency. So Ayurveda is reconnecting us to simple things such as observing what's going on in nature, observing what's going on in our own body, and creating balance between what's going on in nature and in ourselves. And by using what you have in your kitchen, you don't have to go to the chemist and buy some chemical medicine. You can just go in your kitchen and you can mix few herbs, and then you have some medicine that can help you. And what I like about Ayurveda is the fact that there is a lot of emphasis on prevention. So when I came back after my studies, I studied in London and also in India, I've realized that a lot of things that we have in our culture in Guadeloupe was already described in Ayurveda. So somehow our ancestors, they brought with them when they were crossing the oceans a lot of knowledge. They didn't call it Ayurveda, but they know it was good for our health. And they brought, for example, some of the vegetables and fruits that are described in Ayurveda, such as moringa, ash gourd, bitter gourd. I hope you can recognize some of them and you are familiar with some of them. We were talking earlier on with Dr. Andrew, I think, about diabetes. All these vegetables are very good to fight diabetes, except mangoes. Mangoes is full of sugar. You can also use jackfruit. So we have this heritage in the Caribbean, I think. We have also some herbs. So I was very happy to find that when I came back to Guadeloupe, many herbs that I've studied in the classical literature in India were available here in Guadeloupe, and I believe in the other Caribbean islands. So some of them, to mention just a few because they are very a long list. We have neem, which is called nimba in Sanskrit. Ginger, which is ardraka. There is a mistake there. It's hardraka or shunti. There is turmeric, Bhumya malaki. This is the Sanskrit word, but we usually call it gall of wind, which is the plant which has the little seeds underneath the leaves. And then we have the butterfly pea, which is the blue flower, which is very good for the nerve. So you can consume the tea of this flower to calm your system, your nervous system, and to fight a loss of memory and do prevention when it comes to Parkinson's disease. And you have also a white asparagus. You can find it mainly in Guadeloupe. You find it mainly in people's house as a decorative plant, but it has also a lot of medicinal properties, especially for women. And another thing that I discovered when I came back home is that my grandmother used to tell me a lot about the effect and impact of the fruits, vegetables, and herbs. In Ayurveda, there is a concept called virya. And virya is actually the effect, the action of the herbs, whether it is a heating action or a cooling action. And here in Guadeloupe, we have this habit to say, this fruit is going to be heating for you, this one is going to be cooling for you. So I gave you the example of lemongrass, which is actually heating, and we would prefer to consume lemongrass when the temperature is cooling, when it starts to be a bit chilly. And then neem has a refreshing impact on our body. That's why we use it a lot as an anti-inflammatory herbs. And then again, in our heritage, I found that we have a lot of good habits in what we are doing. So for example, eating with our hand, having dinner early, and respecting the cycles of the moon. And there is something that we call in Guadeloupe sirin. Sirin is when in the evening there is humidity coming in the atmosphere. And in Ayurveda, we call it kapha. And it's so funny to see the similarities in what Ayurveda is saying and what's actually happening in our country. And then there is the habit of massaging the body. In Ayurveda, we call it abhyanga. In Guadeloupe, we call it frottement. Frottement means to rub on the body. And in Ayurveda, abhyanga, which is the Sanskrit word, means to rub on the body. And the similarity is that the oil has to be warm. We have to warm the oil. So then again, we can see our ancestors used to rub oil on the body, and it used to be warm oil. And another thing that I found interesting was the purgation. In Ayurveda, there is what we call panchakarma, which are the detoxification therapies, and one of them is called Virechana. And in Guadeloupe, I found that they practice Virechana at a particular moment in the year, which is around September and October. And in the classical literature of Ayurveda, they recommend to practice this purgation around the same time. So I was very happy to see that here in Guadeloupe, we still have this Ayurvedic practice, even though they didn't know it was Ayurveda. So I'm about to conclude by saying that in what I've learned in Ayurvedic medicine during my studies in London and in India, then there is a lot of similarities here in my country. So as I showed you, many similarities, but people didn't know that it was Ayurveda. So they never mentioned it. They never called it as Ayurveda. And it became an oral transmission. So the grandparents would teach their children and grandchildren what to do when it's hot, when you have a headache, how to lower your blood sugar level. A lot of things was transmitted orally, so we don't have anything written here. But when we look, for them, it wasn't just a medicine, it was actually a way of life, a way of living. All these Ayurvedic tips and habits was just included in their way of life. It wasn't something that they had to go and learn in books or university. And I believe that there are a lot of opportunities for Ayurveda in our diaspora. And one of them is that when I came back home, I started to promote Ayurveda, and everybody in Guadeloupe, not just the Indian diaspora, were willing to learn and to practice Ayurveda, to put Ayurveda into their health. So we have a very precious science and medicine that can help everybody. So we should try to promote it, not just within the Indian diaspora, but to everybody. I do a lot of transmissions. That means educate people about what Ayurveda is and how Ayurveda can help them, just like our ancestors, to include Ayurveda in our daily life, not just as a medicine. And on top of that, we have to remember that Ayurveda was recognized by WHO as a traditional medicine in 1982. It's not yet recognized by the French government. I don't know how it is in Trinidad and Tobago, but there is the opportunity, I believe, to work hand in hand and to work towards what we call integrative medicine. Integrative medicine means that we have to integrate modern medicine with the traditional medicine and see how we can bring to the population the best of both worlds. So this is what I had to share with you today. I'm very happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you again for listening.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Linda. We have Dr. Mahabir with a question for you immediately. Go ahead, please.
So thank you very much, Linda, for that wonderful presentation. What would you recommend for diabetics in terms of herbal? Is there any herbal or fruit
Of course. So when we talk about diabetes, it's you have to take care of the person as a whole, not just the diet. So for the diet, they can increase all the vegetables that I've shown in my presentation. Anything which is bitter is going to lower the blood sugar. So you can include what we call bitter gourd, any green leafy vegetable like spinach, courgettes, anything which is bitter and green, you can include in the diet. And you have to decrease anything that will bring sugar. So the fruits, they have to be not that sweet. You have to prefer the acidic food like oranges or anything which is a bit bitter and not too sweet. And then when you look at the herbs, you have to use things like neem. We call it neem here. I think you as well, you call it neem. So you can take neem, you can do a herbal tea with the leaves. You can also mix neem with the first morsel of your food. You can also use some herbs like the one I showed, the well of the wind. This little herbs is very strong, and you can mix it with a little bit, for example, of ghee to pacify a bit the bitterness and have it just before food. And another thing is that you have to look at how you move. If you move a lot, if you have an activity, I don't like to say necessarily sport, but if you dance in your house every day, that means that your body is burning the sugar level. So you can remove, if you eat a cake right now and you dance after until you sweat, you will burn that sugar in your blood. So the thing is, you have to look at the overhaul of what you do, not just your diet. And of course, limit the intake of what is sweet.
Thank you very much for that, Linda. So what happens now? We are in mango season. I love mangoes. I'm not a diabetic, and I hope I never will be, but I love mangoes. And if I can have it every day, I'm going to have it every day. I don't necessarily want it half ripe. I like ripe mangoes. What would you suggest to a diabetic who is like me, who loves their mangoes?
So I don't usually say that you have to ban certain fruits. You have to know when to eat it combined with what. So for example, if you want to eat a mango which is sweet, what you can do is you can eat it while you're walking. You can go for a walk instead of sitting and watching your TV program. See, while you are eating your mango, you will be burning, and after you can dance back home, you know? And then you can also take your nimba tea. So the nimba tea is bitter, and you can have a bite of mango while you drink your nimba tea. So actually, for a diabetic person, I would not advise to have more than one mango. and especially if they don't have physical activity after. It can be dangerous for them.
Right. So everything is a balancing act.
You have to balance everything. So
Yeah.
if you just eat 3 mangoes and you go to have a nap in the afternoon, then you're going to have trouble. But you can eat only 1, and then you go running, you go shopping, you move around, then you are burning that sugar. You have to understand that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that information.
Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring on our third speaker now, whose hand is up, Linda. So he may have a comment or a question for you, but I'm going to introduce him anyways. And this is Mr. Ramnaresh Dwarka. So well known to us. He's a counselor, acupuncturist, and practitioner of complementary medicine, as well as a presenter of a weekly radio and television program on substance abuse treatment and prevention. Welcome, Mr. Dwarka.
Thank you very much, Shalima, and it's a privilege again to be on this forum. And I just wanted to compliment Linda on her presentation. You know, I was taking notes, and it seems like, you know, that was both the 2 presenters who went before were actually preparing the audience for my presentation, because there's a lot of, you know, dovetailing in both. Because I just had a comment. My wife, I can tell you, whenever she wants to eat cheesecake that I like and semi like we just had, and then we always have tamarind in the fridge. She goes and take a few seeds of tamarind and she's okay, you know. And that's not the sweet tamarind, the sour tamarind. So you kind of make the sacrifice if you want to have the privilege, you know. And so I just wanted to say that. However, about my presentation this evening, if you go back to the first slide, Shalima. Right, this was a presentation I did at the Caribbean Institute on Alcoholism for Drug Addiction and Drug Addiction at in Tobago in 2004. I even had forgotten I had done this. It was for Professor Berbrun and the team there. But let me just speak a little bit about myself. And the reason is that I'm not only into substance abuse, I also teach stress management. I practice yoga. I was a teacher with the Art of Living Foundation for many years, teaching that Sudarshan Kriya, they call it, the practice. And I do consultation. I'm an employee assistance program consultant as well. So I do work for people at the university, staff there, and the airports authority, and so on. And I'm saying all of this to say, I bring all of that experience and exposure to the benefit of my patients that I see now. I have a private practice because I believe human beings, and as Linda was saying, we are biopsychosocial spiritual beings. Not that these components could be separated, but bio, we have bones, muscles, and organs. Psycho, we have a mind, we have feelings, we have emotions. Social, in that we belong to relationships and groups and all of that. And most of us believe in a higher power of some sort. And whatever happens in one area affects the other areas. And progressively, what has been happening, we have gone into so much specialization that now you have to go by one doctor to find out which doctor to go and see or which lab to visit. And medicine has become so micromanaged that sometimes, you know, I work at almost all the hospitals in Trinidad. I started at Port of Spain General. Then I went to St. Anne's. I worked at Cora Hospital and San Fernando Hospital. And it is out of those experiences, I thank God that I was exposed to training in acupuncture, and I decided to offer this. And I deliberately, I don't say alternative medicine. I say complementary medicine, because I believe this could complement allopathic medicine as we have it today. You know, Western medicine is very good at surgery, managing crisis, you know, cutting out this, taking out that, but really not very good at curing things. We deal with the symptoms most of the time. We make it more, you know, to relieve the pain and the suffering, but we do very little in terms of healing. And this is why I really appreciate what Linda was speaking about and what Dr. Dhanu spoke about earlier on. You know, just a brief history of acupuncture, again, it really came out of Ayurvedic medicine. What you know, the Chinese, they're always good at taking ideas and fine-tuning it and then exporting it back to us. So acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine, you'll see a lot of parallels between that and Ayurvedic medicine. In fact, one of the points that I use in auricular acupuncture, the first point that I put is a point called Shen Men. But that Shen Men is equivalent to the Muladhara chakra in yoga. So they both tie in. So acupuncture has a brief history. It was practiced in Korea and Japan since 600 BC. And as I say this, you know, if you have a tool, you use it once, twice, it didn't do what you wanted it to do, you'll abandon it. The fact that acupuncture is still with us after all these years in itself tells us that, look, there has to be some benefit to it. And like I like to say, you know, while I don't understand everything about acupuncture, the truth is I don't understand everything about my car that I used to go down to the convention this morning, but I didn't wait to understand how it works. I use it because it works. And this was what sold acupuncture to me when I was introduced to it. So for the past 300 years, well, you saw the history there, right? Acupuncturists are trained in diagnosing and treating the illness, the root causes, the imbalances. And I know a lot of people are curious about the needles. I always get these questions from my patients, you know, does it have medicine in it? No, I don't have any medicine in it. The needles are very thin, like a hair on your head. And a good acupuncturist could put the needle and you will not even know. Now, as I say this, I'm not only trained to practice acupuncture, I have also been trained to teach it. I have trained most of the acupuncturists who practice at New Life Ministries and used to practice at Kaura Hospital. They were all trained by me. I've trained quite a few doctors as well. Unfortunately, quite a number of them don't practice it because of, I don't know, maybe professional jealousy or something. But the needles are solid, they don't have any medicine. The needles can be manipulated to achieve the desired effect. And nowadays, we have new technology. In the old days, when you stick a needle, you have to twirl it with your fingers. And then sometimes you had to use something called moxa, which is like a cigar made of herbs that burn at a particular temperature. You have to use that to heat the needle. But now we don't have to do that. You have electrical stimulation. So you have needle acupuncture and you have electroacupuncture. In fact, where I did my further training at the clinic in the South Bronx, they are now using the electroacupuncture. It is fast, it is not painful at all, and it is still just as effective. Could we go to the next slide? Yeah. The acupuncture stimulates the body's natural tendency to resist and overcome illness. I mean, even if any of you who don't even know anything about acupuncture, if you got stuck with a needle or a pick, as we say in Trinidad, you know what happens? The blood rushes to that area because the blood says, hey, there's something that doesn't belong. And when the blood comes to that area, it don't come empty-handed. The blood walks with all the healing elements and the anti-inflammatories and all of those. If you eat the right food, like Linda was saying, it will come with all of those things and fix it. The advantage is with a trained acupuncturist, they don't just put the needle anywhere helter-skelter. It is put on particular points. You know, just like an electrical system in your house, you have junction boxes. Well, the acupuncturists know where these junction boxes are to get the desired effect. Of course, every day we have new methods coming on, like I mentioned, the electroacupuncture and so on. Can we go to the other slide? I'm trying to pack as much as we can into this few minutes. So in 1972, there were some ladies in Shanghai who wanted to lose weight. And this doctor realized you could use auricular acupuncture to help them to deal with depression and anxiety and all of those. You know, when people, a lot of us, when we are anxious, we do what is called comfort eating. That's one of the signs of depression as well. You know, you see people want to sleep all the time and they're putting on weight. It is because there's some psychological disturbance behind the scenes there. So they found that when you use the acupuncture, the people, those who had the desire to go on the diet, they were able to stay with it. And so too, it was in about the 1973s, there was a serious problem in the Bronx, in the United States. We could go to the next slide. Yeah, where Dr. Smith, there was a problem with methadone. First, a lot of people were addicted to heroin. And heroin, of course, was illegal. It was a crime to have it and all of that. And a lot of people were stuck on it. And they found that they came up with a drug called methadone that they could use to help those people trying to get off heroin, you know, from the withdrawal symptoms. Once you are using drugs and you stop, you're going to withdrawal. And now they found that more people were hooked on the methadone. You understand? Which leads me to my own interest in it. I was working at Cora Hospital in 1992. I'm also a person in recovery. I used to use drugs and alcohol and all of that. So this, you know, when I heard about you could use acupuncture to treat drug addiction, I had to find out about this because I have a passion for looking at anything that could help, you know, the population here. As a person in recovery myself, I know some of the challenges. So I heard that there was this Mr. John Tyndall down at the GMPS Sports Complex who was teaching acupuncture to treat drug addiction. I was on my way with another colleague to St. Anne's Hospital and I said, no. We made a beeline and came back to GMPS Complex. And I actually attended the course, listened to his lectures, and in part of the training, you get a treatment. And although I'm naturally a very skeptical person, as most people are, I know what I felt when I had the treatment. And I said, you know, my skeptical mind sought explanation. And I said, well, maybe it's the day off from work, the ambience, you know, the air condition. But I knew something had happened inside. And I pursued that curiosity up to where it started in the Bronx. And I spoke with Dr. Smith. We could go to the other slide. And I saw what they were doing there. And Dr. Smith said, listen, don't speak to me. Go and talk to the patients downstairs. There was about 100 people sitting there with needles in their ears, 5 little needles on the air. That's what auricular acupuncture is about for this protocol to treat with withdrawal symptoms. And I spoke to them, and every one of them, without a doubt, they vouched for acupuncture. A lot of them were saying this saved their life. Now, there are definite advantages. And there's a study published in the Lancet, which most medical people will know. It's one of the most reputable medical journals in the world, published on the 24th of June, 1989, where they did a double-blind study to check the efficacy because of auricular acupuncture in treatment of drug addiction. Because a lot of people were saying, look, if you put needles and convince people it's going to help them, it will have this placebo effect. So that double-blind study finally proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that acupuncture was making the difference in helping people to come off drug addiction. Now, acupuncture is not a cure for drug addiction. It is a very useful adjunct. It must go with counseling and other modalities like group work and AA and support from the family and all of that. So let's go to the next slide. I myself, when I tried to introduce it at Cora Hospital, boy, I got so much opposition. You know, you'd be surprised that people who are supposed to be scientists and, you know, open people in the helping professions should grasp something like this. But I was getting so much opposition when I tried to introduce it there that they insisted that I must do a study at Cora itself. And this was the result of that study. Before the introduction of acupuncture in the outpatient program, only 55% of them completed the program. But after the introduction of auricular acupuncture, now 70% of the people in the clients in the outpatient program were now completing the program. And a study of 100 recipients of acupuncture showed that 89% of them said that they would recommend to other addicts acupuncture because they got significant relief from the withdrawal symptoms. So can we go to the other slide? Well, that's what an air look like. My air and your air. And if you look at it closely, you will see, with a little imagination, it's like a fetus upside down, where the bottom part is the baby's head and the top is the baby's butt. And that little ridge running there, actually, if you run your fingernail on this ridge here, you'll feel it jointy, jointy, jointy. Those are actually your vertebrae. So I can, without you saying a word to me, I can check your ears and I can tell you if you have a problem in your neck, a lower back problem. And the same way, all your organs of the body is also represented on your hands and the sole of your feet. So you have people who are called reflexologists who treat your hands and your feet and get a similar effect. I'm an auricular acupuncturist, but I have moved on to do generalized acupuncture. So I treat a lot of other lower back pains and arthritis, and even acupuncture has been found to have very, very good application with people with strokes, who, especially if you catch it in the early stages, you can help to keep the nerves alive. Next slide. Yeah. Yes, as I mentioned, the air is like a halogram of the rest of the body. There's 136 points for treatment and diagnosis. And it is a very useful thing to confirm. You know, you listen to the patient, but you could look at the air and know, confirm what they are telling you. They say they have a lower back pain, you could actually palpate the air and confirm where it is. And when you confirm it, you put a needle there and they'll get relief immediately. You know, it could sound like magic sometimes. I've had very, very profound experiences here with people coming in, can't walk, and then after treatment, they just walk out. You know, it could be as dramatic as that, but acupuncture generally takes a little while longer than the medicine we are accustomed to here. Now, as regards drug addiction, common sense will tell you, you can't use drugs to treat drug addiction. You'll be substituting. And that was one of the reasons that I pursued this. And today, I use it in my practice. I don't know, I'm not keeping track of time. You know, when I get to talking here, I could lose track of time. I hope somebody would remind me. But I'm very near the end of this presentation. But it is something that you can use. You can save people having to go and do CT scan and all these things. And I'm not saying that those are not useful, but you can get a good sense of what is happening if you sit and talk to your patient. Now, critical that you sit, you know, I find, having worked in all the clinics, I find people just go through the clinics, you know, at a mad rush. You know, they just repeat their prescriptions in the clinics. I feel sorry for the doctors because they don't have time, because they have a whole set of people sitting there. But in my practice, I sit and I look at, I speak to the patients, I listen to them, you know, where this all started, because I want to rehabilitate them. And yes, I'm very much, in fact, I'm just rushing away from a convention. Alcoholics Anonymous is having their 68th annual convention today at the Devi Hindu School. I was there for the morning and I ran up here because I wanted to be part of this project. So do we have anything after this on the next slide? Yes, it is very useful adjunct in drug rehabilitation, especially to detox, because you don't have to use drugs. And as I say this, up to today, we don't have a drug that could safely detox a pregnant woman, because any drug we use can harm the fetus, but acupuncture can be used to detox pregnant women. It has that advantage. It also, we have no counseling we could do with mentally ill people, because you can't reach them with counseling. They don't understand, they're not right there. But acupuncture will reach them. Now you'd wonder why the government is not, because this, it costs about 3 cents to treat a patient, you know. And you'd wonder why the government doesn't support it. Well, it's for the same reason Dr. Danu was saying, and I think you, Shalima, mentioned it. Medicine are being produced with a profit motive. That's the bottom line. And I dare say sometimes, you know, when I used to be the president of the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Addiction, I did a flyer. The headline, the banner was "Healthy Lifestyle, no side effects. Healthy lifestyle, no side effects. And I think this is what we have been talking about here, all three of us this morning. Have a healthy lifestyle and you will not have to deal with side effects. Thank you all very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you do have a question, raise your electronic hand. Mr. Dwarka, let me ask you though,
Sure.
where are you sourcing your needles and any other tools of the trade?
Well, there are several suppliers. Now with internet and all of that, you can get supplies directly from China. There's suppliers in New York. There's suppliers on Amazon. You just have to give them the various sizes. I have various sizes of all needles come in all kind of sizes. There's one box here. I don't know if you all. Well, it's not showing against the green background.
Not showing now.
But yes, there are different. There's small needles for the ears, and there are other longer needles for the body. But I want to let you know it is not like injection needle. The needles come with a little plastic tube, and if you press it hard against the skin and you tap it, the speed with which it goes through the skin, you don't even know. And most of your sensory nerves are in your skin. So once they go past them, they wonder, hey, something happened there? We already put the needle. And then it helps if you know how to distract your patients, you know?
Yeah.
While you put the
So
needle.
you chit chat a lot.
Chat a lot and appear like you're going to match the toe. And then, you know, things like that.
Do you have acupuncture treatments for females who have reproductive issues?
Yes, definitely. In fact, when I started my practice here in 1992, I was treating a lot of women for menopause problems because the auricular acupuncture helps to bring your hormones into balance. And those of you who have not experienced menopause is not something you want to look forward to, right? Because the allopathic alternative is to put you on HRT. And we know it is an established fact HRT could cause cancer. So a lot of people don't want to go that route. So they come and they have the auricular acupuncture. And yes, if we have time, I'll give you a little, this is not a story. I was doing my first presentation at Cariad, which was in Tobago. After the presentation, the coordinator, a lady named Alison, if I give this information, I hope it's confidential. Alison had gone through her menopause and she had stopped seeing her periods and all of that about 5 years before. But when I was doing the presentation, she was so anxious. She said she wanted to have the experience. So I used her as my guinea pig. I put the needles for her. And the next day at lunch, she said, Mr. Dwarka, if I fall on my knees and beg you to do acupuncture, please don't ever do it for me again. I said, what happened? That sounds like bad advertisement. She said, you know, my periods came last night.
Oh my.
What it does, it brings your body into balance and it can help. Actually, I have patients right now who go to the fertility clinic in Barbados and get referred to me for acupuncture to bring their hormones into balance before their treatment.
Well, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. When you heard the news recently about the 11 babies who would have passed in the neonatal clinic at the public hospital,
I have a lot to say about that, Shalima.
I'll give you 2
My
minutes.
grandchild, some 15 years ago, died at Mount Hope. At that time, it was 18 children died because of the Enterobacter bacteria. That was under Manning's government, and his sister was the consultant. And if you all remember, go through your mind back, she criticized her brother on that issue and then it led to the coming and cleaning up the maternity ward and all of that. So this is not the first time this has happened. And under the same, I'm not being political here, but I'm being honest, under the same government. And they knew, they should have known this.
Right, but is there anything that you can recommend, for example, for the mothers in this situation?
Well, definitely there's cause for counseling here. You know, after the fact, you know, I used to be director of family services here. So yes. Family services need to get on board with these people immediately. Mm-hmm. You understand? They need a lot of support. They need to start a support group for all these mothers. So people can ventilate, get it out of their system and learn how to cope with this. You know, I mean...
can you use acupuncture as a coping mechanism in
Yes,
any.
definitely. I have used acupuncture to take people off. You know, a lot of people, as soon as you present at the average professional, and as I say, this general practitioners should not be prescribing psychotropic drugs. It is unethical. Psychiatrists should do that.
Correct.
So a lot of people go, and from the time anything worry them, and they go to the doctor, doc, you know, I can't sleep, they get prescribed sedatives, barbiturates, and you know what happens? We Trinidadians, we too smart for our own good. We read the label and then we go back by the doctor, we go and buy it from the pharmacy, and now we get hooked on it. It is 10 times or more times more difficult to come off these prescription pills than it is to come off cocaine and marijuana and heroin and all these illicit drugs. So I have had to take medical professionals who had become dependent on these sedatives and all of that, help them to get off.
Very interesting. Let me ask you the final question. This is from Kasraj. What protocols are involved with sterilization of the needles that you use?
Definitely. In my practice, I use new needles on each patient. At the hospital, after we use the needles, because we will not get funding, we used to put it in, there's a kind of gauze that you send to the autoclave. The nursing assistants would put it in that and then send it to the autoclave, and it would be sterilized together with all your other surgical instruments. So when it came back out of there, it would be sterile.
Excellent. All right. You've very good information, very helpful. Thank you so much for being with us and for sharing. And I would like an opportunity to ask some more questions after our fourth presenter. So let's have our fourth presenter now, and hopefully we should take some questions for all three former presenters. Yeah? Thank you very much, Mr. Dwarka. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you now to our fourth and final presenter, and this is Dr. Hemant Toshakani. He's a professor and dean at Parul University of Ayurveda, Parul Institute of Ayurveda at Parul University, which is in Gujarat, India. Dr. Toshakani is well known to us in Trinidad and Tobago because he was here heading an Ayurveda unit at the University of the West Indies at the medical school. Unfortunately, that did not continue, and Dr. Toshakani could probably shed some light on why that was so. But we welcome him now to share some of his knowledge with us. Dr. Toshakani, please unmute if you can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me. Though it is 2 a.m. here in India, and I could able to hear all three presentations before my presentation, which was done, and I could able to make certain things. I was there in Trinidad University of West Indies as a professorial chair for Ayurveda, and now I could able to again see, like, you were the emblem of Indo-Caribbean Culture Center, where our Indian flag is there. So now India, it's going for an election also, probably you may be knowing, the largest democratic country, where 130 crore people will vote. So altogether. And I don't know what was like the mail which I received. In that it was mentioned I should speak on orthopedics in Ayurveda, that is fracture and heat healing. I'm prepared for it, and if you also expect, I was just going through the presentations that which were done and any discussion on this. It all depends on how much time you have. I can speak in 5 minutes on orthopedics, and then we can take questions if you wish. And I also have to say, Kumar Mahavir, when I was there, he used to support me there. Today is, when I saw him, today is Mahavir Jayanti in India. Probably people know about Mahavir. So, hope this screen is visible.
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah.
Can you put it in full screen, please, though? Yes, and Dr. Toshakani, because you've prepared this presentation, you can please go ahead with it for 15 minutes, if you like.
Yeah, definitely. So this we salute Lord Dhanvantari. Dr. Miss Linda was speaking about Ayurveda and other person. Actually, how Ayurveda has evaluated who is the founder. We say it is Dhanvantari when he is the one who invented the Ayurveda. And my topic is fracture management in the traditional Indian system of medicine. And as I have mentioned, I'm heading the faculty of Ayurveda in Parul University. Hope few of you may be knowing about this. This is a university located at Vadodara, Gujarat. We have 2 institutes of Ayurveda and we have 2 hospitals of Ayurveda. Other than that, we have almost 45 institutes. There are around 75,000 students. They study with us. And in Ayurveda, we have like graduation program, which is of 5.5 years, master's program, which is of 3 years, and doctorate program of another 4 years. And approximately 1,400, 1,500 students, they study over here. So I have, for anything to understand whether whichever is a science, we should have these things. There is a textbook in Ayurveda, the ancient textbook in Ayurveda, which we call as Sushrut Samhita. He has mentioned one Sanskrit quotation: "Pratyakshato yadrashtam shastradashtam chayat bhavet samasata bhuyo jnana vivardhanam." The meaning of the quotation is, to do anything, we should have the pratyaksha knowledge, that is practical knowledge. Then we should have a theoretical knowledge combined with both, which we can practice. And like Ayurveda is 1 century BC or before that. As the evolution of human being started, from the same day onwards, the science of medicine has started. That's what Ayurveda. And there are many branches, like she was telling about 8 specialties. Today we are around 24 specializations which we offer post graduation in India. And one among them is Shalya Tantra. Shalya Tantra is a surgical branch, and in that, what we do, one part is orthopedics, that is Bhagna Chikitsa. So you may be knowing why bones are useful. Bones support for our movement, bone protect our vital organs. They are also responsible for blood production and many other things that what bone they do. And what is called as fracture in Ayurveda is Bhagna. Bhagna is discontinuity of the bony tissue, is called as Bhagna. And why this happens? Like, there may be a trauma, there may be the convulsions, there may be a disease, there may be fall. So all these reasons, they make any trauma to the bone, and bone may get broken. And what will happen in our if it is a trauma to the cartilage, cartilage bends. If it is a long bone, it breaks. Flat bone, it cracks. Teeth fragmented. Third bones get broken. So I'll not go much detail about it. See how Ayurveda has explained. There are 2 types. This is also true with any system of medicine. Like we have to manage dislocation and then the fracture. So there are 12 types of fractures which are mentioned in Ayurveda literature. Just I will go one by one with few examples. What is the characteristic feature about the fractures? What it is mentioned, like what I wanted to highlight you is whatever written in the textbook, especially in the part of orthopedics, this all is practiced, or this all is true, and this all is accepted and practiced by Western medical system. So we say, I have written all Sanskrit words that, like, one word is Shvayatu Bahulyam. Shvayatu is swelling in the extremity. Sparsha Saishnutam. Sparsha is the person feels tenderness. He will not allow you to touch the part where he has got a trauma. So Avapidyamane Shabda, there will be a crepitus movement when there is a movement. So there are different types of symptoms that which are seen if there is a fracture. That's what mentioned in our textbook. And there are 12 types of fractures which they have mentioned. I will not explain everything in detail because it takes a lot of time. So one example is Karkataka. This is mentioned by Sushrut. Karkataka, word meaning is crab. Where there is a fracture happens, it looks like a crab. It is usually in case of a depressed fracture, it appears like that. We have got another example. I will show you another example. Ashwa Karna. Ashwa is a horse. Karna is a ear. The fracture line appears like horse ear. Just you have to assess. These all things are explained by our Acharya, that our authors in Ayurveda, when there were no Rontgen rays, when there were no X-rays. So in that case, whatever different types of fractures which are mentioned today's modern medical science are also mentioned, and its management is also mentioned. Simple example is finest way to assess, like there is one fracture which is called as an periosteal avulsion. So when there is a trauma, a periosteum peels off. So knowing this radiologically is a challenging thing, but about this also the textbook has mentioned. So there are different types of fractures that what textbook has mentioned, all 12 types of fractures. So I have mentioned accident or injury, aging, disease, bone fatigueness. Then what will happen because of this? There is a compression of bone, there is an angulation, tension, rotation and shearing. Because of that, there is a fracture. So what is the prognosis? How fracture responses to the treatment? In ancient Indian literature, Ayurveda literature, it all depends on the season. It all depends on the status of the patient. It all depends on the status of the bone. It all depends on the type of fracture. It all depends on the site of fracture. It all depends on the age. Suppose somebody is a aged person who has got the fracture neck femur, probably it will not heal, or there may be delay in healing. Or if it is the fracture which takes place in a rainy season, in Varsha Rutu, where again there may be more pain in that. If a patient is somebody has got a trauma or a fracture of same site, again if there is a fracture of same bone, same site, then again there may be a delayed healing. And if it is a compound fracture, then there may be a problem. So there are the complications related to fracture also mentioned. Like there may be local complication, there may be a systemic complication which is mentioned in the textbook. Local, there may be a swelling, pain, avascularization, gangrene. Usually this will happen. And systemic fever, abdominal distension, cessation of passages. So we usually do whatever, whether it is a Western system of medicine or whether it is Ayurvedic system of medicine, all fractures needs to be immobilized. And immobilization itself is a basic management of a fracture. So how to immobilize a fracture? Just I have given some samples actually here. All I have not given in detail about it. One quotation from Sushruta Samhita, I have put it here. I will read for you in Sanskrit and I will explain it also. Tatra atishitila baddhe sandhistaryam na jayate gade napi tvagadina shofo rukapava evacha tasmat sadharana bandha bhagnashat. Here what Sushruta has mentioned, what text has mentioned, whenever there is a fracture, don't put a tight bandage, don't put a very light bandage also, don't put a very low bandage also. We have to put a medium bandage where there should be possibility of internal fine movements of broken edges. This is what is text has mentioned. This is what is practiced. Like when you put a POP is not put fully tightly. There is a space is left for a micro movement of the fractured bones. So this is how fracture heals immediately. When there is a blood gushes out, then hematoma will form. Then there is an inflammatory response. Then the fibrous structure will start depositing in the broken ends. Then reparative response and the bone gets remodular. So I told about gentle movement increases callus. For callus formation, it is necessary. And usually in fracture, what is the basic fundamental principle is compare the abnormal side with the normal one. So again, what are the management principles? What Ayurveda has mentioned. This is accepted by universally. It is accepted by universally. It is accepted WHO. Everybody has accepted these principles. Very basic four fundamental fracture management principles. Imagine this is again mentioned in 1 century, and it is true. It is useful. It is practiced. It is practiced like all orthopedicians across the world, which is mentioned in 1 century BC. That is, Anchana is a traction, Pidana is a manipulation, Sankshepana is stabilization, and Bandhana is immobilization. So again in Ayurveda, what has happened? So immediately if there is a fracture, we have to manage it. Like we pour some of the medicated oils or medicated decoctions on that part. Then we apply some local paste which made out of all these medicines like Rubia cordifolia or St. Madhu, or which it also got a type of ghee in it and rice powder in it and red sandalwood. So these are all which we use, and we prepare a paste like this, and this paste is applied over the fractured site. What is the advantage of application of this site? This reduces the local inflammation, swelling and pain. And then these are the drugs that which are mentioned like Udumbara, Ashwatha, bamboo, and these are mentioned to use as a splintage. So you can give as a splint. Then we also give internally to the patients a milk which is prepared out of primary cow's milk, where it has got laksha, that is shellac in it, and some other medicaments that which enhances bone healing. Till now there is no any drug that which increases the healing of the bone, or which increases the duration of the healing of bone, or which increases the callus formation. That's what it does. So this is how the fracture is managed, and it is a general principle what I told. And again, when you go in detail in the textbook, we have got how leg bone fractures are managed, how joint dislocations are managed, how iliac fracture, Katipagna, Amsa Sandhi, leg dislocation. And these are different splints what we use today were also practiced those days. And dislocated elbow joint, fracture metacarpal. So how we give supports, cervical spine, mandibular dislocation. This is just one example, one photograph. If there is a depressed nasal bone fracture, then it need to be elevated. There is to be a rod which we call as shalaka. With that, they used to manage. And any cartilage, which either how we used to repair, we used to repair with the use of particular medicated ghees. So again, there is a reference about malunited fractures. There may be chance a fracture may get malunited. So text says, or it is practiced, it should be rebroken and it should be made to heal. So there are other treatment modalities are also mentioned in the other than support, other than immobilization. And one more caution what Sushruta has given is a surgeon should expert his guard against the advent of any pyogenic infection, because the infection, if it sets in bone, it is very difficult to cure. So this also was known, and a caution of this also is given. And again, different types of splints, internal, external fixations, they have mentioned in those days, what we call as kushabandha. The grafting, bone grafting theory was mentioned in those days. That is what we call as asti purana. Immobilization, then tractions are also mentioned. And what we call today's physiotherapy, I was just listening about acupuncture. So acupuncture was also a component of Ayurveda. I will tell you how we have developed about acupuncture. Then rehabilitation, what we do under the name of physiotherapy, those days lighter weight to the higher weight. So first you lift the mud ball, then salt ball, then you lift the stone, like this, how it is mentioned. And many questions are there, like whether we should do a massage when there is a fracture site is there, when you are treating fracture. Yes, a gentle massage is allowed, not the massage which immobilizes the alignment of the bone. Very gentle massage which increases local circulation, which brings down the pressure, local pressure, such with some medicated oils, it is okay. And there are list of medicines that which we use, whether in internal administration or external application, for healing of fractures. And we have done a lot of work on this. We have also seen the osteocyte, that bone forming cells are increased by usage of these medicines. And what type of food we should consume, what we should not consume, that is also mentioned. Rice, meat, soup, milk, ghee, these are all nutritive, are good. And those which are acidic, those which are alkaline in nature, those which are pungent in nature, in their taste, and over exercise, exposure to sun. These are all not advised. So how to know the healing of the fracture? No swelling, hardness of palpation, absence of shortening, painless and easy movements. Actually, I wanted to show you a few x-rays I had, and this is a fracture maybe, and you can see the callus formation. I hope people are seeing this, that white patch here. This is how the callus, there is an internal callus, there is an external callus. So internal callus begins, when internal callus finally formed, then only bone remodeling takes place. We wait for that. And this is how the fracture has healed. So to conclude, whether it is mentioned here, Bhagna Chikitsa, whatever disease, whatever line of treatment, whether it is preventive, you can see the fracture management is mentioned in 3000 years ago with a great success, because those days also people used to suffer with a trauma. They used to have wars, and they used to have, and there used to be a better management. There used to be whatever today's practice, like even we put a prosthesis, such references are also mentioned. And see why there are some practitioners in each and every village, in each and every part of India, there are healers, bone healers are there, and with a minimal medicine, minimal involvement of drugs, minimal anesthesia, the fracture management is also done. But why it is not widely practiced? It was not learned by many people, and so only there may be a reason, lack of exposure, fear to manage. So still it has not reached everyone, but there are areas where people, they practice. So I thank everyone for giving me time and patient listening. So any question related to this?
Dr. Turshikani. Thank you very much for sharing. Very, very informative. I wondered about persons in their 80s heading to their 90s who might be having issues with their spine. Would you recommend using that kind of treatment, bone fracture treatment?
No, whether they have fracture.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a fracture, then like there are different managements. Like a person with an age of 80 years, whether he has developed osteoporosis, followed by whether he is at a risk of developing a fracture with a minimal trauma, then the management something is different. And one who has sustained a fracture, the management something is different. And we treat day in, day out such patients, whether they have a porotic bone or they have sustained with a fracture. Basically, we give in such case like spinal, what you are telling, we give Katibasti and Basti, we give the administration of particular type of medicament through the rectal route. It definitely helps in bone healing, quicker bone healing. That's what we do.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Dr. Thomas, did you have any questions for Dr. Turshikani? You want to unmute? You can unmute. Yes.
Not any specific, but I raised an issue for all three. Since we're dealing with Ayurveda and things like that, what is their view on legalizing cannabis for all these kinds of illnesses?
Okay, great.
Do you want me to explain? Or?
Yes,
definitely. Yeah, well, it's for everybody.
Yeah, okay. The usage of cannabis for a medical purpose is permitted in India, and Supreme Court has recently allowed in India. And one of my students who conducted a study under cannabis for perioperative pain management, and we have also filed a patent for this. We have developed a nasal spray with the cannabis, and cannabis is also administered through oral route for management of many other diseases, like whether it is pain, neurological or psychological conditions. It is for a medical purpose. It is used, and it is allowed also by the Supreme Court of India. And we are still, like, we have a council in India, Government of India's Council for Central Council for Research in Ayurveda and Siddha. Through that also we are insisting to give much more areas to use such, like not only cannabis, there are many more such herbs that which are not allowed to use because of their other actions. Like we are working on that also.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Toshikani. Mr. Dwarka.
Yes, I'd like to jump into this question because I have very, very serious thoughts about it. When we were about to decriminalize marijuana, I spoke with our Attorney General personally, and he understood the point I was making. But you see, politics is a different animal. However, I just want to say this to explain. There are three kinds of psychotropic drugs. There are those that are sedatives, sleeping pills and all of those that I spoke about earlier. Alcohol is one of them. Then there are stimulants like cocaine and amphetamines and coffee. And then there's hallucinogens. The third group is hallucinogens like heroin and joy juice and all of those, LSD and so on. And you notice I didn't mention marijuana. But which group you think marijuana belong in? Now, if anyone said sedative, they'd be right. If they say stimulant, they still be right. If they say hallucinogen, they still right. The question is, alcohol is only a sedative, and look at the problems it is causing, and it is legal. You understand? Cocaine is only a stimulant, and look at the trouble it's bringing people to homelessness. You understand? I was a director of a treatment facility that only took homeless people. And heroin and all of these are only hallucinogens. And it can send, if you go to the St. Anne's Mental Hospital, you'll see a lot of young people there with drug-induced psychosis. And it is marijuana that caused it. So a drug that can do all three, who in the right mind could really convince me that it is safe? Yes, medicinal use, but I know drug addicts, I work with them. They will come up with they will come up with a reason over in a second. They'll have a back pain and they'll somatize about so many things to get a prescription if they didn't forge it themselves. So we know the behavior of people who have become dependent, and really, if we are offering marijuana, even legally, it's like you put in cat to watchman cheese, you know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, sir. Linda, let's get your response.
Yes, I wanted to say that actually in Ayurveda, they say that everything that exists on earth can be used as a medicine. So you just need to know how to use it, which quantity, and to who you're going to give it. So when it comes to marijuana, I'm not sure it's good for everybody, but in some cases, for some people, at a certain dose, you can use it to relieve pain. This is very good to relieve because it acts mainly on the system nervous. So if nervous system, sorry, I mix French and English, nervous system. And in a small dose, it can help many people to reduce their pain. And then actually, I think the therapeutic marijuana is different than the one that the guys outside are smoking. So we have to make a difference between the therapeutic use of this herb and the one which is used as a drug, more like an escapism reaction on the body. It's different for me.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I'm seeing another question on the chat. This one from Chand. Chand wants to know a little bit about Vata, Pitta, Kapha and foods that aggravate and relieve these three. Dr. Toshikani, you want to weigh in here, please? Foods that aggravate these three.
No, Linda will, but anyhow, I will just, in 1 minute, I will summarize. See, a basic concept of Ayurveda is like we have got functional entities and we have got structural entities in body. So the functional entities of the body are Vata, Pitta and Kapha. Vata is where there is a movement, what we call is an air. Where there is any movement, like if I blink my eyes, Vata is responsible for it. And any digestion, any metabolism that which takes place, we call it as a fire. That is what Pitta, all enzymes, all secretory enzymes, that which are responsible, that which we involve in the name of Pitta. Again, there is sub-classification. Vata has 5 types, Pitta has 5 types. Then Kapha is where there is a binding, where there is a stickiness, where there is a lubrication, like in joints. That's what is Kapha. So then when you go in detail, like for each season, each age, each condition of the disease, whether what type of disease, whether there is a increase of vata by its particular character, like its roughness has increased, then what medicine I should give, whether I should give ghee or whether I should give aloe vera gel, that we will decide based on, we call it as a fine diagnosis, amshika diagnosis, like it's a mathematics. So how much what has increased, based on that there are drugs, there are medicines that are prescribed. In general, based on, there is one concept in Ayurveda which is called as dinacharya, daily what we should eat, and we have a concept called as rutucharya. Rutu is based on the season, what type of food, what type of our lifestyle should be there. These two things, if we adapt, we probably prevent many of the diseases. So that is what I want to, in this short, I want to communicate. Probably Dr. Linda may give much more explanation about this.
Yes, thank you. Linda, let's get your comments on this.
So, yeah, he's actually my teacher, so he's already said the main part. But I like to, when I talk about Vata Pitta Kapha, I like to put it in a very simpler way of explaining. So I don't usually use the Sanskrit word. I prefer people to understand. So Vata is more about the movement. So I call it the energy of movement in our body. And it is responsible for everything which is linked to the nervous system. So everything that will allow you, for right now I'm talking, Dr. Toshike said that when you move your eyes, when you think, when I'm talking right now, you are trying to picture what I'm saying. So this is due to Vata dosha, the energy of movement. And then you have the fire. The fire in our body will transform everything in your body that transforms. That is to say, if you zoom in your body, you will see that there are enzymes which are responsible for transforming what you eat into energy. You have also hormones in your body that will transform your humor, your body. The growth hormone can change, make you grow. So the hormones and the enzymes, for me, it's the energy of transformation, which is Pitta. And then Kapha is the one which is giving you stability, strength, and resistance. So Kapha is the mix of water and earth. And then you can find it in your muscles, in your bone, in your immunity system, but also which is the energy that will help you to retain information. So what I'm telling right now, your brain will keep it in to remember. This is due to Kapha. And the transformation, Pitta, is the energy that will make you understand what I'm saying. So when it comes to food, you have, as Dr. Herman said, you have to adapt your diet to the season, but also to what's going on in your body. If you feel heat, you have to cool down. So you have to eat food that will cool down your body. If you feel dry, you have to hydrate your body. If you feel fatty, though you have a lot of fat, you have to dry up your body. So Ayurveda is very simple and logic, but it needs you to be aware of what's going on in your body and to adjust what you do at every steps of your life.
I would just like to add, you know, and Linda mentioned it earlier on, is how we eat our food. You know, and I want to give some practical. I went to India twice, never got sick. I never got the Delhi belly. You know why? Because I only eat when I'm hungry. We have developed a habit in this part of the world to eat when it's 12 o'clock, it is lunchtime. Whether you're hungry or not, you know, you eat 12 o'clock or you eat 8 o'clock. Because it is important that we have the Jata Agni inside of us, the fire, to digest the food. If the hydrochloric acid is allowed to build up when we eat, any little bacteria and all of that, the body could take care of it. So how we eat, and then a lot of us eat food and then we eat the fruits after. Or we eat mixtures of combination of foods that are really antagonistic to each other, you know, and we create a war in our stomachs. So I'm sure we could have another session like this to talk about all of these things, you understand?
Yes, very interesting, Mr. Dwarka. And we will probably have to include Siddha in that particular conversation. Chandramohan is asking whether we have any comments on Siddha, that traditional medical system in the Tamil regions of India.
Yes, Siddha is again a part of Ayurveda only. One Rishi, I forgot his name, he translated Ayurveda books in Tamil language, and then they started practicing in Tamil. Most of the therapies, they are of Ayurveda, like with a name change. And they also have got one good technique. I was just speaking with, listening with the acupuncture. No? There, we have got a concept called as Marma Sharira. In Siddha, it is called as Varma Sharira, Varma Chikitsa. Like there are vital points in our body. Ayurveda mentions around 107 vital points in body. And these 107 vital points are mentioned in Ayurveda with the intention of protecting these vital points, because if this science has come out, it's a hunting science, it's a war medicine, not as a healing medicine. So in that case, what will happen if anything hits at particular point? What will happen? A person either he may die, he may cripple, or he may develop a pain. Many such things will happen. So we know those points, and now manipulation of those points will help in treating those diseases, particular type of disease. So this in the concept of Varma Chikitsa, concept of Varma Chikitsa is much more predominant in Siddha medicine. Otherwise, all other therapies in Siddha are very common. They go hand in hand with Ayurveda only. That's what I want to say. And I have seen, I know many people who practice Siddha. And in addition to that, I wanted to add one more point about, there is one Chikitsa, there is one line of treatment, what we call as Agni Karma. Agni Karma, Agni is a fire. So we touch different types of, again, it's a big science. Like just to brief you, we heat a metal. Again, there are different metals, and we touch different points in our body. So it gives its own responses, whether we want to manage a disease, you want to manage a pain, whether you want to control some disease, prognosing disease, this is also possible. And further, I wish to add one thing, where we are working, we are doing a lot of research on these all areas. So I have developed an Android application for Agni Karma, so that I should know if I have to do it for cervical pain, how that device should be. If I have to do it for corn in a foot, how it should be, what type of temperature, what type of metal needle, and how much deep it should go. All these, we are working on that. And I was also about Linda and anybody, like we are also looking quick and immediate effect of our medicines. We are identifying if any medicine is giving effect, and we are increasing its potency and concentration, and we are developing a smaller nanoparticles, and whether it is a local application, whether it is a patch, sublingual patch, the subdermal patch, or whether it is a smaller form, those medicines also we are developing and we are practicing. There are a lot much is going on in this science actually. So it is nowhere different between Western system of medicine, and they should, as Linda was mentioning, they should go hand in hand. There are many areas I have my own limitations. There are many areas where Western system of medicine has got a limitation. So where there is, we work in our hospitals, we have got a allopathy hospital with a medical college. So if there are some limitations, those patients, they come to us, and our patient, we refer to them. This is also possible. So this is not there in the other part of the globe, especially when I was there in University of West Indies. I was planning to incorporate this type of system, but somehow, what is the reason is not needed to discuss, but it is required, what I believe it is required. And such type of forums also required to discuss on these areas, so that policymakers can also take some inputs from this.
Correct. So Dr. Toshikani, it is really regretful that your work had to be cut short in Trinidad. We were so looking forward to the advancement of Ayurveda in our medical system here. It's a serious pet peeve for me. I hope you can hear that in my voice. But it is what it is, and we have to move forward. So we are very, very grateful to have had you on the program. Mr. Dwarka, you have your hand up. Chand has her hand up, and I'm seeing the question on the chat.
I would like to give a gift to all our people who participated today, in that if you happen to be there when someone is having an epileptic fit or have fainted, there's a point, you put your hand at the back of the person's head for support, and you take your thumb and you press it under the nostril here, put some pressure, and you'll be able to take them out of it.
That's if you could stop, if you could manage to control their movements.
Yes, well, I mean, you have to be firm.
Yeah.
And there are other points, you know, myself, I could see what Dr. Hemant was saying. Acupuncture, there's a relationship with all of these points. There were points in the old days in the army in China that the soldiers would march all day, and there's a point on the shin here, stomach to the six. They'd do that, and they'd be able to march all night again. It'll give them the energy to do that.
Interesting. We had a question from Suman Kapoor about energy. She's losing energy very quickly with nominal tasks. Feeling tired very quickly. So I suppose maybe she can try something like that.
There will be other things that you'll have to investigate. Sometimes if you have a low blood count, that could also cause it. If you don't have proper breathing techniques, if there are other conditions, age is, it's not possible to diagnose a situation like that unless you're sitting with the patient, looking at them, and talking to them to really be able to give an adequate response.
Yeah. So Suman, we will probably have to ask you to check in New Zealand whether or not there are Ayurvedic practitioners available and acupuncturists. And if not, we can always share the email addresses for all of our presenters today. Chand, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My question is there any treatment for osteoporosis?
Okay, recommendations for osteoporosis.
Any treatment in Ayurveda?
Treatments in Ayurveda for osteoporosis.
Yes.
Would like to take that one.
Okay.
Dr. Hemant is the specialist.
Dr. Hemant.
Okay, number one is we should know usually in women when they attain menopause, because of hormonal changes, the calcium deposition in bones comes down and women sustain the osteoporosis. So this is a common thing what will happen. And I don't know what is the age of the madam who she has asked. It all also depends on the age.
70 plus.
Sorry, Chand?
I'm 70 plus.
Okay,
71.
And you have undergone any test, like what is your the level of osteoporosis?
I have it in both my hips.
Like whether it is osteopenia or osteoporosis, and we do tests and we assess what is the level, and based on that treatment is given. And best treatment what we give is we have what we call it is a Tiktaka Grita. That is, we use there is one medicine, its name is Gugula Tikta Grita. Either it can be given internally or like orally, or it can be given through rectal route. So it has got very good response in prevention of osteoporosis, also strengthening of the bones. This is primarily what I can give. Until unless I don't know the situation, I cannot tell many more things about this condition. But there are many treatment modalities in the management of osteoporosis based on the stage of the disease, phase of the disease, condition, complaint, symptom, age, all those things.
I'd like to have it treated without any medication.
Okay, so she wants a treatment without any medication. And at this point, Chand, we need to send you the email addresses so that you can speak with Dr. Toshikani, Mr. Dwaraka, Linda Govindas, and see whether or not they can assist you. I want to say thank you very much to all of you. It has been an extremely interesting and informative program. Your time is really, really precious. We so appreciate it. Thank you as well to Dr. Andrew Danu for sharing all that you have. And anyone with diabetes who needs information, Dr. Andrew Danu is the president of the Diabetes Association. He is an excellent resource. All of our presenters today, excellent resources. And I also want to say a special hello to our brother from Suriname, Dr. America Anrod. He was here. He would have met Dr. Toshikani when we had that session on Ayurveda at the Indo-Caribbean Museum. So I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we don't. We do have to bring today's program to a close, and Dr. Toshikani needs to probably get some rest because it's about 3 a.m. now where you are, I imagine.
Yeah, 3 a.m.
Yeah. So thank you all again. It's been a wonderful session. Thank you so much for your time, your expertise, your knowledge. Absolutely, absolutely appreciate you. Shakira, take over, please.
Thank you, Shalama, and thank you everyone for taking the time to attend and to participate. And as we've said earlier, this public meeting is being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center. And remember that we are asking you to give us your suggestions, volunteers, and donations. And we want to thank the advisory and planning team led by Dr. Kumar Mahabir, to our IT manager behind the scenes, Ravan Ramsingh, to Daryl Gransham for designing the poster, Miriam Mohammed for our TikTok videos. And our topic next Sunday will be the making of the movie Maria, which is being produced in Trinidad. So please visit our YouTube channel to see all our past recordings. I am Shakira Mohammed from Trinidad saying goodbye. May God bless you all. Dhanyavad.